Welcome to this video in a series of videos installing FastPass Password Manager 3.6. This video will focus on preparing the server for installing FastPass and also preparing Active Directory with the proper groups and users. First of all, we will prepare Active Directory. So let's have a look at what we'll do. We'll create first a user, and that's the user that will uh, be able to administer FastPass once we get it installed. And this user will put in a group with the FastPass admins. So this group can, all the members of that group will be able to access the administration client of FastPass. And this is done on the domain controller, of course, but you could do the same and have it as a local group if you wanted to. But normally you would create this on your domain controller. You might already have uh, an admin group that would have that would need access to the admin portal of FastPass, and then you could use that group instead. So that was the group. Next up is the FastPass users group. So this group will hold the users that will be allowed to actually use the front end of FastPass. Um, So in terms of self-service, of course, and in terms of inviting, etc. Finally, we also have the FastPass help desk client group. So these are the users that will be able to access the help desk of FastPass. Now we're back to the FastPass server, and we're creating the service accounts that needs to run FastPass. First up is the FB user, and this user is the database user. All of these users can be created as local accounts, as we do here, or you could also create them in the domain. If you create them in the domain, please note that you'll need to provide some special rights for some of the users, especially the gateway user, who will need logon rights on the FastPass server. So that was the gateway user. The gateway user has to go in a gateway group, and that's what we're creating now. Finally, we have one user more, but and that's the FPIIS user running the application pools, but we'll actually let the installation create that user because it will do it with minimum rights. Next is the installation of roles. So first we'll add the AD role, which is the database of FastPass. We'll store all the user data, etc. in that one. We'll add IIS server. We'll add .NET. Um, when we go into the IIS roles, it's important that we get the .NET 4.6 ASP.NET, and we have to get IIS 6 Metabase compatibility installed also. So that will cook for a while. The next step in the preparation is to get a certificate on an SSL certificate on our IIS server. So we'll start up IIS. In this example, we'll create a certificate signed by our domain CA. We have a certificate authority, but you might create a certificate request and put it to your trusted partner that creates the certificate for you. You might also use a self-signed one, but be aware that if you use self-signed certificates, if you're going to test this with client machines, you'll need to deploy the self-signed certificate on your machines too in order for them to work. Here we create a domain sign, so that means that our domain machines will also be trusting this certificate automatically. So after creating or adding a certificate to IIS, it's necessary that we bind it so IIS knows what website we would like to have this binded to. So be aware that the name you put in your certificate is the same name that the end users will need to access the service from. It's also the same name that you will need to have put into the server initialization installer later in the process when you install FastPass, and you'll bind to this name for in many things, so it's important to have the right name. Next up is the installation or creation of the Active Directory instance. So it's not real Active Directory, it's the Active Directory Lightweight Directory instance. So we'll use this wizard installer. First thing will be to give a name to the instance and we'll create a unique instance, give it a name. Next up will be to select the port numbers. So we are standard using 50,000 and 50,001. And then we'll create a directory partition. We'll use O equals password manager as the standard name. You can create your own name, but for getting support, etc., it's better if you select the standard one, and here we'll select the path. And finally, we'll give it the FP Adam account. So that's telling the solution now that only this account will be able to access the database to query it, nobody else basically. That's it. When it installs, it will prompt you for the credentials for the FP Adam user. So give the credentials and the installer will finish the work. And that's really, that concludes the preparation steps. So we've created the needed groups, etc. in Active Directory. We've created the service accounts locally on the FastPass server. We've installed as an SSL certificate. We've also created the ADLDS instance. So we're good.